Okay, folks, I am back again, episode 72. Originally, this was going to be about a 7. I'm sorry, but the Ashley and Derek stuff kind of brought the episode down for me. I wasn't really feeling it, but Detective Cat is doing it again. Now, while it is frustrating because we want to see her win and Leslie to face justice, it just seems like due to the fact that I ain't gonna hold you. Now, Jacob is a detective. You know, he has the credentials, he went through the proper channels and whatnot, but I ain't gonna hold you. I think Kat and Detective Malone would be a better partner pairing on the force than Jacob and Malone, because ironically enough, the good detective is giving Jacob advice on, look, if you want to nail someone, sometimes you got to bend the rules. And Jacob is still in awe of his father to the point where he believes that he's not corrupt and that the system works. But unbeknownst to him, I'm not saying his dad is, getting money under the table, but if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because we haven't seen Jacob's father in a while. I recall his father telling, Malone to get off Jacob's case, but at the same time, didn't he lie to his son about Joey not being a bad dude or something like that, and Joey working with the feds or something, when in actuality it was a cover-up story because Jacob had seen Joey taking money from, or Detective Malone taking money from Joey, something like that. I forgot. Listen, it's been months, but essentially, I think Kat and Malone would just be they clean up the streets a fair amount fresh. That's all I'm saying. Now, what aside from the Ashley Derek stuff, remember what I said in one of my recent one of the 3 I posted earlier, I forget. Look, I'm doing 5 reviews in one night, okay? I forgot what review it was, but the one where I talked about Eva and forgiveness and stuff, where it's hard to actually feel anything because she's lying. So that's another reason why I was going to give this episode less than a 10, but the other elements, specifically Mona and Kat, and then Carlton and Nicole, that upped the score for me. So before getting into it, make sure you do the usual. Like and subscribe. Follow me on social media. Links are in the description below. And hit the bell icon to select all. That way you're up to date whenever I post content on the channel. So at the country club, Kat's on the phone, and then Eva, who has a different hairstyle, I think for like the first time in the entirety of the show. I ain't gonna lie, it looks kind of good. But Laura is bae. Now, also, I gotta admit, later on in the episode, when they did the close-up of Kat after she walked into the diner, hell yeah. Alright, so Eva steps to Kat about being a common thief, swiping the helmet and gloves from her hotel room. And, all of a sudden they ended up in my mom's apartment during a search. So, I'm kind of confused here. So is Eva admitting to Kat's face that, yeah, I took that evidence from the apartment, put it in my hotel room, and then it magically appeared back in my mom's apartment during another raid via a search warrant? So she's literally playing in Kat's face, just like she was when she was working for Nicole, whenever Kat was trying to bust Eva via, camera footage and whatnot. Basically, Eva is proving to be evil, just like Kat called her out for after the anniversary party. Look, you try to act all innocent like you tried to stop it, but the moment where I had you on camera and my parents believed you and then you smirked at me, that's when I knew you were evil. She was doing the same shit right here. Calling out Kat for being a common thief and trying to get my mom arrested and locked up, but it's not going to happen because my mom's resilient. Oh, like a cockroach. Oh yeah, I didn't know you sedity types even knew what a cockroach was, but I know she's resilient, and so am I. We're not going anywhere unless, my mom doesn't isn't going anywhere unless she chooses to go anywhere. So you need to step in line like your brother and get used to the new world order. She is basically telling Kat, yeah, my mom almost killed Laura, so back off. Stop trying to get her locked up. And Ted makes shit even worse. But yeah, any remorse I had is completely gone now. Remember how in my other review recently, I'm kind of back and forth. Like, I want to feel bad. I understand where Eve was coming from. But her own actions of preventing her mom from facing justice for what she did to Laura, it negates any sort of sympathy I have. But this is Eva going right back to how she was when she was pretending not to be a Trojan horse. So no, I feel no sympathy now. At all. At all. So, from there, we got Ted and Carlton interacting. And this is the first time Carlton is acting with Keith's version of Ted. So, okay. And I didn't realize Carlton was so tall. Or maybe that's because Keith is shorter than Maurice. I don't know. Maybe that's throwing me off here. But essentially, you know, Carlton is giving Ted a TED talk. Okay, don't dislike the video because of that bad pun. But essentially, yeah, Carlton is giving Ted advice about, look, man, you screwed up. And Carlton is speaking for the audience like, man, if I were you and I screwed up as bad as you did, first of all, with a woman like Nicole, I wouldn't have dropped the ball in the first place. But if I were you, I'd be spending every waking moment trying to make things right. And it just seems like Ted is spending way too much time trying to make up for lost father-daughter time with Eva, as opposed to doing one of two things: making amends with Nicole, but most importantly, handling Leslie, which he is not doing. Kat isn't it crazy? Kat, even though she is doing too much and she's being a bit bratty about it, Kat is spending more energy and making more of an effort to take Leslie and to some extension Eva down than Ted is. And that's really messed up when you think about it. That's saying a lot. So Nicole actually comes up mid-conversation. It's like, well, it's good to know one of you has some sense. And then Ted's like, hey, you're looking good. Ceramics class. Oh, what's that? Actually, I got a yoga class to go to. Nice running into you, Carlton. And the way he, she rubbed his arms, like somebody's like, yep. Mm-hmm. Looks like Nicole gonna get a piece of that before maybe she goes back to Ted. So yeah. Now, Carlton's like, hey brother, I got your back if you need anything. But I mean, even if it's so far as to try to make a play on Nicole just to make you look better by comparison. All right. So he walks away and basically warns Ted like, hey, don't wait too long, or if she keeps doing even better and better without you, there's going to be another man living in the house that you used to live in with her. So then that leads to Ted and Eva having I think breakfast. I think it's morning at the country club, and she goes on about how, and like I said, after that encounter with Kat, I just do not care about Eva and what she's doing because she hasn't changed. She hasn't. But basically, it's the same conversation of, oh, I miss my job with Nicole. Helping Laura and going over to the house again. It just made me remember what it was like. And Ted's like, well, maybe we can help each other. So, aside from actually doing something to handle Leslie once and for all, you would think Ted, rather than accepting Leslie's word at face value, would have been looked into another DNA test just to fully confirm Eva is his daughter before going so far as to getting her a nice hotel room before helping her get an apartment and hooking her up with a job at one of the finest salons in the area. But for now, going so far as to offer Kat's old job at Ted's practice in his office. I don't know how I feel about that, because it just feels like everybody is still acting like Kat wasn't right. It's almost like hey, Kat, I've accepted Eva as my daughter. And then Nicole's like, Kat, she hasn't said this, but it will get to that point. Kat, I've accepted Eva's apology. Martin has invited her over for family dinners and whatnot. And Kat is made to look like the villain. And that's not the case whatsoever. I just feel like, I ain't gonna hold you. Kat, I don't know. She deserves better. I like Kat. I don't love Kat because of her personality. But in terms of everything that's gone down, I just feel like her life is slowly being stolen from her by someone who wronged the family. And it just feels like, why is it so easy for her to receive this forgiveness that she low-key doesn't deserve? And I remember a few weeks ago, being mad at Anita and Danny for the way they treated her. You will never be a Dupree. And it's like, well, she never really wanted that. It was like she just wanted to know her dad and stuff. But now it's like seeing that Eva literally hasn't changed. I don't feel bad for her anymore. Like I said earlier in the episode, the way she stepped to Kat like that, basically saying like, why did you steal the evidence that I was hiding to prevent my mom from getting arrested for a crime she committed? You're a common thief, and she's not going anywhere, and neither am I. It's just like, wow. So yeah, essentially he's like, well, Kat's busy with her, modeling clothing line and whatnot, so Kat's just going to have to accept it. And to some extent, Eva's like, after everything I've done, why would you trust me? It almost felt like, she didn't want to be a Nepo baby. That's kind of what I was getting. But Ted's like, nope, it's okay. And then eventually, Ted introduces Carlton to Eva, their new office manager. So, wow. Poor Kat. Yeah. Now, over at Martin and Smitty's, Martin comes downstairs and Smitty's on the phone call. His editor, liked his piece. Wasn't his first assignment about like people utilizing social media to prey on others, that kind of thing? And apparently he did such a good job. His editor is already giving him a new assignment. And shout out to Smitty. It's cool to see you back on the job after everything, with Martin pushing back. But now he's, fully back into it. It turns out his next piece is on a legendary detective, Malone. And I'm like, hey, the good detective, Jacob's partner. Martin's face just went pale, which possibly indicates the good detective was involved with the incident that he's having flashbacks of, because he pretty much tries to talk Smitty out of doing this story because it's beneath him. And Smitty's like, well, no, I don't want to be difficult. I just got this job and I want to act like I'm above the work they're giving me. But, he's kind of, wait, you actually think I'm above this thing? It's like, wow, it's so cool to see you supportive of my, ability. So mid conversation, a guy named Zach comes in. Apparently he works for Martin, and Smitty gives him the room. And man, whatever happened in the past starts to eat away at Martin something fierce. So apparently there was an incident at a family-run store in the neighborhood, and the guy got beaten pretty badly by the robber, and it was only over a couple $100, but he got beaten so badly, like his daughter could barely recognize him and whatnot. And as Zach is describing the incident, Martin has these vivid flashbacks of the beatdown that he allegedly gave dude, back in the day. And he just said, oh, well, it's just migraines and whatnot. It's like, what, let's send flowers to them, and we'll go to the place where it happened, and I'll make a statement there and whatnot. And then Zach's like, yeah, it's good that you're always there for the people and whatnot. So things get so bad that he goes to his mom, and his mom says, like, hey, well, your grandmother is back on tour with the Articulates and whatnot, just giving him an update about, where his grandma is, and he needs advice. And it's like, well, I can't, take you on as a patient because you're family, but I need a mother's advice. And he talks about the recurring nightmares that have been happening for quite a while. and he feels like he's losing his mind, and it's gotten to the point where it's like, wait, it's not about you and mom, it's not about you and dad and Leslie, and it's not about the kids or work. It's just, this has been going on for a while. So look, I'll give you a list of therapists, and you contact them immediately and get in touch with somebody. And that look on her face is just telling, because she knows something's wrong. And that's the sad part. Nicole nor Ted know about what happened. And ironically enough, later in the episode, I believe Martin was walking through the country club. That mysterious white dude who was seemingly following Martin just stops, whatever he was doing with a customer at the country club, and then rushes after Martin. So what's going on there? Maybe I'll find out in episode 73, which I'm about to start as soon as I finish this review. After that, we go over to Uptown, and Jacob is there with the detective, and he spots Leslie from across the bar. And Jacob's like, the detective's like, I thought you were a happily married man. I am. And then he basically goes over the rundown of Leslie and her involvement with the Lord case, but he can't, get DNA and whatnot without a warrant and things like that. And the detective was like, well, now you see what I mean about bending the rules. And that goes back to what I said at the beginning of the video, where Kat and the detective will get along just fine, because sometimes if you don't get the results you want, you got to bend the rules in order to, hey, the ends justify the means. And then Leslie spots him, and then they leave. And from there, Kat actually calls Jacob, because Kat then goes over, and look, Kat... Okay, she's bending the rules, but I don't know. If you're looking at this specific episode, it's almost like Kat isn't necessarily breaking the law, nor is she bending the rules. Kat is playing hopscotch with all the loopholes, and I think that's hilarious. So, sorry about the squeaking here. She goes over to her mom's house to talk with Mona, who's still, mad at herself over the Leslie debacle, but hey, I got a plan. And the thing is, she texts Leslie to meet at the diner, and she's curious if, is this about forgiveness, because she mentions how Laura forgave, and it's the Christian thing to do, and maybe I should, follow her example. And then Kat shows up, and like I said, the way they just froze on her at the door, I'm like, you, woo, woo, hot damn. So she sits over in the booth, and Leslie's like, what is she doing here? So mid-conversation, because, Mona's just stalling for time, Jacob sneaks in there, and I don't think Leslie saw. But, in the middle of the conversation, Kat is calling Jacob about, or telling him about the situation. And then Jacob just goes in about her and Leslie being the same. And she drops probably the most hilarious burn I've ever heard in this series. I am not Satan in a wig. I died. I had to pause the episode and laugh for a good 3 minutes, because that was just funny. And unlike, her, my heart's in the right place. And it turns out to be a DNA gathering trap, because Mona tells Leslie, hey, you got some on your cheek. And, it's like she rubs it a few times and then puts the napkin on the table. And after, I guess securing what she was trying to do, she basically goes into telling her about why I can't and won't forgive you, because what you did was wrong. I know you're talking about trying to get Eva to get to know her father and everything like that, but you could have done this in a more humane way instead of publicly humiliating Nicole, who had nothing to do with it. So Leslie tries to play the victim or manipulation tactic on Mona by saying, like, I thought you had texted me to come over here as a friend and for forgiveness, but you're just plain mean. And she got up and left. And then after that, Kat gets up, walks over, gets the napkin, and Mona's like, I can't believe I had to do that for as long as I could. Well, you did a great job. And then she basically tells, hey, no warrants necessary. Test this napkin. You don't need a warrant. You're good to go. Kat gets shit done. I might not agree with her tactics, but I gotta admit, it's kind of attractive. It kind of is. But I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of her wanting to figure things out. But it's things like this that make you go, yeah, this is why Tomas doesn't really know her like that. Nor does she know him, because she spends way too much time on this Leslie stuff. But then again, if her dad would step up, then she wouldn't have to do it. And with that being said, the last thing to talk about is kind of the most dull thing. All right, so we're talking Ashley and Derek here. So Derek asked, are we okay? Long story short, they aren't really able to schedule like a date night to watch a movie or go to dinner because, actually I was supposed to go out with the guys tonight from the fire station baseball team, and it's like, oh well, I can't go out tomorrow night with you because my mom and I are having a thing. And it's like, oh, so Naomi and Derek go to Uptown, and then Andre stops by the hospital and talks with Ashley. Long story short, they both have conversations with another person because they're both wondering if moving in together did irreversible damage to their relationship, because the way they interact with each other now kind of mirrors the way they were interacting when they were living together, where it's like the quiet things began. Basically, they were they were letting things fester until it blew up. And now it's like they are walking on eggshells around each other. Here's my take on it, because Derek's like, you know what, I love her and I want to make things work. If you and another person don't see the future in the same way, or at the very least, you don't see a future with each other based on current events. Well, more specifically, I understand these two rushed to move in together. Some say Derek only wanted to move in just to kind of, claim his territory because he was low-key maybe nervous about there being a thing between Ashley and Andre. And then on the flip side, Ashley probably only accepted Derek moving in with her to prove to herself that there was nothing with Andre, but then it turned out to just blow up in their faces. But like Derek said the day he walked out, it's better that we know now than later, because it would hurt more to, get married and have kids and whatnot, then find out we aren't a match. I think that if you and the other person both agree that maybe we don't belong together because we're too different and whatnot, it sucks and it hurts, but it's better to just walk away than, like Derek said, we're driving a car and it's making a funny noise. Like, if there's something wrong, address it. And heck, they even addressed it, what was it, a week or two ago, when they agreed not to move back in together. I mean, I get it. Relationships are different. And I mean, between people who have multiple girlfriends or multiple, people who have multiple boyfriends, or it's just, I'm not saying it's weird, but I mean, everybody, it's like Andre said, I've been around the world. Everybody has their own sorts of relationship and romance. So no, not everybody's story or relationship will mirror another person's. But if you two have lived together and established that you aren't compatible in terms of living space and whatnot, especially with the fact, and I get it, it's Ashley, and I'm not trying to call Ashley selfish, but if you were to both move into a neutral space, neutral as in you both go in with the rent and whatnot, it's a completely new home or apartment and whatnot, and there's going to be constant butting of the heads about what goes where and things like that, it's not going to work out, because your romance is going to be buried under the argument about who left the cap off the toothpaste or things like that. So simply put, I feel like they're both delusional. I think Derek already knows. Derek can already see the writing on the wall that, it's probably not going to work. And Ashley just knows that she probably just loves Andre and doesn't want to admit to it. So that's pretty much what it was. And Naomi really isn't helping either, because, like, you know what, last week I would have told you just to kind of work things out and whatnot, but after what happened with my dad and feeling bad about the months of not talking with him, essentially YOLO, make it work. But no, I get it, they're your friends, but they aren't you and Jacob. They aren't. And there's no need of trying to force something if both parties involved realize, I think we're worse off now than when, well, obviously they're worse off now than before they moved in together. But I think they both realize, like, I love Derek, I love Ashley, but that love isn't enough to make us forever roommates. And if that's the case, just break up. Just rip the Band-Aid off. Okay? Just rip it off. Rip it. All right. So that's essentially that. And oh yeah, Andre does mention that the footage he turned in was apparently good enough. So his job is officially done. And he won't be bumping into Ashley anymore at the hospital. So, I mean, unless he randomly comes over to visit with Ted or Nicole or something, yeah. So I wonder how Ashley's going to deal with that. And without the documentary, why is he still going to stick around? My own theory is that perhaps he's just going to stick around for the sake of, you know, seeing if his uncle and aunt are going to be okay. Or maybe Danny says that, you know, let's make it public. I don't know. So only time will tell. But with that being said, thanks so much for tuning in to my episode 72 review. One more to go, and I'm officially caught up with Beyond the Gates.